Morning. It's Tuesday, March 29th. And when I was a young man in high school, I had a summer job working in a photo lab down in Lower Manhattan. And every day I would take the Lexington Avenue train down to Worth Street. I think that was the station at that time. I think it's an abandoned station now. Anyhow, when I got off the train, I had to walk through a tunnel that took me out to the side streets so that I could get over to the street that we worked on, to where our laboratory was, and it was located very near the Bowery. And every morning when I would walk through that tunnel, there would be homeless people sleeping in the tunnel. And every now and then I would come through that tunnel and the police would be there, and they would be waking these people up and asking them to leave. And if one of those people had a problem and didn't want to leave, then the police could arrest them for something called vagrancy, and take them off and put them in a cell somewhere. I never knew where they went after that. But most of the poor people who had no place to live, they stayed on the Bowery down in Lower Manhattan. And now we have a situation in New York where there are over 125 encampments for the homeless. And these encampments are in places like Tompkins Square Park, places like that. And Mayor Adams has a plan to move these homeless people to shelters. And then there's a group of people that are advocating for the homeless, and they don't believe they belong in shelters because the shelters are dangerous. So what is more dangerous to the people in the city? Having homeless people sleeping in the subway stations and sleeping in these encampments? Either place is unhealthy. But when you hear about the crimes that have been committed on the subway stations by homeless people, then we have to understand why Adams is doing what he's doing. He's got to clean up the city somehow. So he has this campaign going where they're visiting these encampments every day and encouraging people to go to the shelters. And they want those encampments cleaned up, have all of the tents and everything in these temporary structures that have been built in these encampments to be removed. So I think it's the proper thing to do. I think we need to clean up the city, and I think we need to find a place for the homeless. And I think the plans to have these homeless people be given the proper medical treatments and health treatments and psychological treatments if necessary. And I don't see why there's a big ruckus about this. I don't see why the advocates for the homeless are objecting to this solution. Do they have a better solution? Have they raised any money to protect the homeless, to get them off the streets? I don't think so. I mean, it's okay to advocate for the homeless, but at least get together and do something. Sit down and talk to the mayor, make suggestions. I haven't heard anything like that. Adams has declared that he wants to take care of these people and clean up our public spaces because no New Yorker deserves to live on the street. And so we're breaking down the silos and working together across governments to keep New Yorkers safe and to keep our streets clean. And he says those are the basic expectations that we have for our city. And he says, I'm planning to deliver. We are planning to deliver this. But the advocates are against it because they don't think the shelters are safe enough. And that's probably true. Because if you have a group of people like the homeless, I am sure that there are many who need a lot of mental health, and they're unstable, and living in a place in a shelter could be a dangerous situation. But we have to weigh that against the rest of the community. Should these people be on the street? Can't we create a safe environment for them and for all New Yorkers? Do New Yorkers have to worry about walking through parks that have homeless encampments? Do New Yorkers have to worry about riding their public transportation because people are living in the trains and everything? I think not. I think the homeless advocates have to get together with the mayor and come up with a real solution. And when I say a real solution, it has to be like 90% correct, because nobody will be 100% satisfied. Meanwhile, in cleaning out these encampments, they got 22 people who were willing to be placed in shelters. And there are 312 other people that were placed in shelters between the end of February and the end of March. So they're providing services, and some homeless people are taking advantage of them. And it remains to be seen if the shelters will get better or worse. But I think they'll be better if somebody is paying attention to it. One of the things that the advocates are screaming about is that the homeless who are sent to the shelters do not have a single room to live alone. Well, that's difficult to do. I think, if you have a room with 3 or 4 or 5 in it, that's good. I mean, if you're talking about like a hospital ward where there might be 8 or 10 people, or maybe there are even 20 people sleeping in a room, that might be a problem. So you have to work on getting them the space to have everybody who's sent to a shelter given a single room. That's a great, great vision. But you have to understand the cost of that. You have to understand whether it really works or not. And I know people who have spent time in other places where they lived in a ward-type atmosphere, and everybody got along fine. So there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of work to be done, and there are many different things that need to be done, but you have to start somewhere. And Adams is starting to clean out these homeless sites. That's a start. Nothing can be perfect from the very beginning, but you have to get the people off the streets. You have to make the streets safer and the subways safer before you can start worrying about the people who are inhabiting those spaces illegally. I don't know if it's really illegal. Imagine if he had said we're going to lock them all up in jail and treat them as vagrants like they did when I was a kid walking through the tunnel. Could you imagine an uproar about that, right? This is another major conundrum that has to be addressed. And I don't believe that anybody should be advocating that this situation should continue. Why don't they think about their solution to this situation? We have to start somewhere. Take baby steps and solve the problem. And have a wonderful day. Bye.